A shattered radio intercept crackles to life, fragments of German commands swallowed by static. The voice, strained and desperate, mentions an unknown barrage, decimating entire platoons within minutes. The accompanying photograph, blurred but telling, captures a line of German soldiers frozen in shock, disoriented by explosions that seem to come from nowhere. How could artillery fire so sudden, so overwhelming, break the iron discipline of seasoned Wehrmacht officers? The paradox is stark. Weapons so loud, so visible, and yet its true nature remained an enigma on the battlefield. What was this Katy Bara that shattered front lines faster than any blitzkrieg tactic? And why did the German command fail to grasp the scale of the threat until their positions collapsed? The story begins in the shadowed halls of a U.S. ordnance factory in late 1943. Engineers, under pressure to outmatch German artillery, devised a self-propelled gun mounting a 155mm howitzer on a light tank chassis, dubbed Katy Bara by the crews, an ironic nod to a popular song. The weapon combined mobility with firepower in a way unseen before. Official memos reveal a bitter debate among U.S. generals. Some saw the new artillery as a logistical nightmare. Others, a potential game-changer in the European theater. A blueprint, recently declassified, shows the complex recoil system designed to stabilize firing on the move, a technical marvel hidden behind rugged steel. But what drove the rush to deploy this new weapon? Was it desperation as Allied forces pressed towards the Rhine, or a calculated gamble to break the stalemate on the Western Front? At its core, Katy Bara was a paradox of engineering. Weighing just over 25 tons and armed with a 155mm M1 howitzer, it could fire a 43-kilogram shell over 14 kilometers with terrifying accuracy. Unlike traditional towed artillery, it moved with armored units, delivering rapid barrages without the lengthy setup. However, archival maintenance logs reveal persistent mechanical failures in the suspension system, and the gun's limited elevation made it vulnerable in hilly terrain. A faded photo from a field workshop shows a crew frantically replacing a broken track under fire. Despite these flaws, its psychological impact on German troops was immense. How did such a machine, with clear technical vulnerabilities, manage to crush well-entrenched lines so effectively? Was it sheer surprise, or something deeper in its tactical deployment? The first major test came in December 1944 during the Battle of the Bulge. The 3rd Armored Division deployed Katy Bara units alongside infantry, expecting to suppress German counterattacks with precise mobile fire. Instead, German officers' after-action reports, some smuggled to Allied hands, describe bewilderment as entire battalions were obliterated before they could organize a defense. One map, annotated in haste, marks the rapid collapse of the Schnee-Eifel line within 45 minutes of the first salvo. Initial Allied intelligence had underestimated the weapon's rate of fire and mobility. Did the element of surprise alone explain this devastation, or was there a flaw in German reconnaissance that let this weapon operate undetected in the crucial first moments? German command scrambled to respond. Field manuals were rewritten overnight, emphasizing rapid dispersion and camouflage to evade Katy Bara's devastating barrages. Yet intercepted communications from January 1945 reveal growing panic among officers. Counter-battery fire was ineffective against the mobile platforms, and attempts to breach flanks only exposed troops to concentrated shelling. Some units experimented with nighttime movements and smokescreens, but photographs from the front lines show shattered equipment and blurred faces of exhausted soldiers. A secret directive ordered the development of new anti-artillery tactics, but time was short. Why did decades of German artillery doctrine fail to anticipate a weapon that combined mobility and firepower so seamlessly? Was there a blind spot in their battlefield assumptions? The climax unfolded in early 1945 as Allied forces pushed into the Rhineland. Despite dwindling resources, Katy Bara units intensified bombardments, coordinating with air reconnaissance to target German command posts and supply lines. A recently unearthed operation protocol reveals the orchestration behind this relentless firestorm, combining signals intelligence with real-time targeting. Maps from this period show fractured German defensive zones, their once cohesive lines now a patchwork of isolated pockets. Wehrmacht officers, once revered for their discipline, were overwhelmed by an enemy who could strike, relocate, and strike again before units could regroup. Did the integration of technology and tactics in KD Bara herald a new era of warfare? And what lessons were lost in the chaos that followed? Each episode is a document I pull from the dust of the archives. Share your own stories. Many of you have relatives who lived through that time, and your words help connect personal memory with archival evidence. Stay curious. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode tomorrow. Intelligence reports from March 1945 expose a fractured German command struggling to adapt. A captured field diary of a battalion commander reveals a creeping sense of helplessness. The KT Bara. Guns strike like thunder from nowhere. Our counter batteries dissolve into silence. The diary's margins bear hastily scrawled sketches of the battlefield, showing the rapid disintegration of defensive sectors near the Roer River. The distinct, guttural roar of the 155mm howitzer shells ricocheting through the valleys is noted as a haunting presence. Yet, beyond the physical destruction, there is an eerie, psychological toll. Officers report frozen decision-making as the unpredictability and speed of KT Bara barrages shattered their standard operating procedures. How had the Wehrmacht, masters of Blitzkrieg, found themselves paralyzed by an artillery piece? Was the shock purely tactical, or did it reveal deeper fractures within the German war machine? In parallel, intercepted communications reveal frantic attempts by German engineers to replicate or counter the technology. Blueprints, partially smuggled to the high command, sketch out concepts for a mobile 150mm artillery platform, an attempt to match KT Bara's mobility and firepower. Yet according to versions from field reports, these projects suffered from chronic shortages of critical materials and skilled labor, leaving them theoretical at best. A grainy photo from a clandestine workshop shows workers assembling a prototype chassis, but the image fades before the weapon could see combat. Meanwhile, German artillery units resorted to massed static batteries and scorched earth tactics, sacrificing flexibility for brute force. Why did German technical ingenuity falter in replicating a weapon that so effectively dismantled their lines? Was it a failure of industry, strategy, or something else lurking beneath the surface? The psychological warfare inflicted by KT Bara extended beyond the battlefield. Propaganda leaflets dropped over German lines attempted to downplay its effectiveness, branding the weapon as a noisy but unreliable threat. However, letters from frontline officers to their families reveal a starkly different reality: fear and disbelief at the relentless shelling that seemed to defy traditional countermeasures. A rare photograph taken by a German war correspondent captures a shattered command post, its walls pocked with shell fragments, and a map scorched by fire. The caption, written in faded ink, reads, "When the earth trembles, even steel falters." How did this psychological impact influence German troop morale and cohesion in those final months? Was the fear of KT Bara as debilitating as its physical destruction? Amid this chaos, the Allied command refined their tactics, integrating KT Bara fire with fast-moving armored and infantry assaults. Combat footage, grainy but unmistakable, shows coordinated strikes where artillery barrages soften enemy positions mere seconds before tanks surge forward. The synergy was lethal. German lines, already fragmented, crumbled under simultaneous pressure. Field orders from January 1945 emphasized speed and surprise, leveraging KT Bara's mobility to create pockets of resistance that collapsed swiftly. Yet, some German units adapted, employing deep defensive trenches and rapid counterattacks during lulls in shelling. A captured map details these adaptations, with zones marked for counter-battery fire and fortified fallback positions. What determined the success or failure of these countermeasures? Could German resilience have altered the course if given more time, or was KT Bara an unstoppable force? Behind the scenes, the logistics of sustaining KT Bara operations were immense. Supply chain records from the U.S. Army highlight the Herculean efforts to maintain ammunition flow, repair damaged vehicles, and train crews under combat conditions. A candid photograph depicts a weary mechanic wiping grease-stained hands surrounded by stacks of shells and spare parts, Despite mechanical vulnerabilities, the weapon's crews developed a ruthless efficiency, often operating under fire to keep the guns firing. Yet, internal reports warn of the thin margins. Delays or shortages could render entire units ineffective. How did the Allies manage such a complex logistical ballet under wartime pressures? And what risks did they knowingly accept to keep Katy Barra on the front lines? As spring blossomed over devastated European fields, the lethal dance between Katy Barra and German forces reached a fever pitch. A map from April 1945, annotated with shifting front lines and artillery positions, reveals how the EWAS weapons' relentless barrages carved pathways for the final Allied push. German officers, increasingly isolated and desperate, resorted to fragmented defensive pockets and scorched earth retreats, their command structures eroding under fire and confusion. A torn fragment of a command cable intercepted near Cologne contains a cryptic message: "Lines broken, no reserve, withdraw." The collapse was swift, almost theatrical in its finality. Was the speed of this disintegration solely due to Katy Barra, or did it symbolize the cumulative unraveling of a faltering war effort? What shadows linger in the silence left behind these shattered lines? In the immediate aftermath of the Rhine crossings, an unusual artifact surfaced in a bombed-out German command bunker, an American artillery shell casing marked with a serial number traced back to a Katy Barra unit. The casing bore scorch marks and impact dents, evidence of its violent journey through the air. Its discovery was documented in a field intelligence report, which noted the rarity of salvaging such evidence so deep within enemy lines. The photograph accompanying the report shows the casing beside a tattered map strewn with German unit positions, hinting at the weapon's reach far beyond initial expectations. How had Katy Barra shells penetrated so deeply into the German rear echelons without interception? And what did this imply about the erosion of German air defense and counter-artillery capabilities? Simultaneously, prisoner interrogations revealed harrowing accounts of the weapon's psychological impact. A captured German artillery officer recounted how Katy Barra's unpredictable timing and rapid redeployment sowed confusion, breaking the rhythm of traditional German artillery barrages. His testimony, recorded in a clandestine interrogation transcript, described a battlefield where fear of sudden, overwhelming fire replaced confidence in entrenched defenses. A blurry photograph in the dossier shows a group of prisoners, faces etched with exhaustion and disbelief, standing amidst the ruins of a shattered village, silent witnesses to the weapon's devastating shadow. Was the psychological dimension of Katy Barra a deliberate Allied strategy, or an unforeseen consequence of its design and deployment? How much did this intangible fear accelerate the collapse of German resistance? Meanwhile, Allied after-action reviews unearthed operational dilemmas posed by the weapon's vulnerabilities. A technical report details frequent breakdowns in the hydraulic recoil systems under sustained fire, causing delays and exposing crews to counter-battery sniper fire. A rare color photograph from a maintenance yard captures a Katy Barra unit stripped to its chassis, mechanics working feverishly under the midday sun. Despite these weaknesses, commanders praised the weapon's strategic value, often risking crews for rapid redeployment. Yet, internal memos warn of over-reliance on Katy Barra, cautioning that mechanical failures could stall momentum and leave flanks exposed. Was this balancing act between firepower and fragility a hidden factor in the Allied advance? Could the weapon's limitations have been exploited if German forces had regrouped faster? As the war neared its end, clandestine communications from German high command reveal last-ditch efforts to counter the relentless shelling. Orders were issued to disperse artillery units, increase camouflage, and employ decoys to mislead Katy Barra targeting teams. Photographs from this period depict camouflaged emplacements, some disguised with foliage and netting, others hidden underground. However, intercepted Allied reconnaissance reports confirm that many of these measures only delayed the inevitable, as coordinated air-ground operations neutralized decoy positions swiftly. A smudged radio transcript captures a desperate German artillery officer lamenting, "Our guns are shadows. Their shells are thunder." Did these final struggles reveal about the shifting balance of power? Was the fate of German artillery sealed the moment Katy Barra entered the fray? in a final revealing detail. Newly surfaced correspondence between U.S. artillery commanders highlights the weapon's influence on post-war military doctrine. A memorandum urges the development of integrated mobile artillery units capable of rapid deployment and sustained fire, citing Katie Barra as a blueprint. A faded photograph shows a briefing room filled with officers studying maps and models of the weapon, their faces marked by both awe and strategic calculation. This planning foreshadowed a transformation in modern artillery tactics, emphasizing mobility and precision. How much did this single weapon accelerate the evolution of artillery warfare? And looking back, what lessons remain buried beneath the thunderous echoes of those shattered German lines? The final weeks of the European conflict saw Katie Barra units pushing deeper into the shattered heart of the Third Reich. A weathered map recovered from a fallen German general's briefcase charts the collapse of defensive positions along the Elbe River, with annotations marking artillery devastation zones attributed directly to the relentless 155mm barrages. Field photographs, faint but haunting, depict ruined villages and broken bridges, with American artillery crews advancing through the rubble, faces grim, eyes fixed on the next target. Yet, beneath this physical destruction lies a deeper story. The irreversible psychological fracture inflicted on German officers who faced a weapon that redefined battlefield dominance. Did the swift disintegration of the Wehrmacht's front lines owe more to Katie Barra's thunderous shells, or to the cumulative erosion of morale and command cohesion it wrought? In the end, the Katie Barra was more than a weapon. It was a catalyst that shattered illusions of invincibility. German officers trained in precision and discipline found themselves at the mercy of a force that combined mobility, firepower, and shock in a way never before imagined. The rapid collapse of their lines was not merely a failure of tactics, but a symptom of a new kind of warfare, one where the ground itself seemed to betray them under the relentless pounding. As archival documents and personal testimonies converge, a chilling question remains. How many battles were truly lost to strategy, and how many to the invisible terror of an artillery barrage that turned time and space into an unrecognizable nightmare?